Looking for some new podcasts to listen to? Well, Rat Salad Review Network has plenty of shows to choose from. Like Rat Salad Review, where they discuss the latest rock and metal news, as well as interviews and albums. Album versus Album, the King Diamond Podcast, with Wayne Noon, Greg Noggle, and sometimes this guy.
Smack 'em a gob!
Ralph Vieira is also on our network with the Vieira Vault. There's also Old Man Metal's Musings, where he discusses heavy metal and beer. Music is Life with Lou Mavs. The Right Opinion for those who love politics. A South Park podcast called Suck My Balls. The Infinite Fringe, a watch-along wrestling show called Beyond Bushido. Ex-Stradivarius guitarist, the Timo Tolkki podcast. And the Great Harry Barnett with I Don't Even Like Podcast and the Laughcast. So check out ratsaladreview.com or search Rat Salad Review on YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and more.
It's time for Rat Salad Review with your hosts, Wayne Noon, Greg Norgal, and Nate Lander.
Chris Holmes is pretty righteous, I think. He's always my favorite Wasp member.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
He's a little out there.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I still love the fact that he got knocked out with a frozen ham on that first tour.
Yeah. I heard that story. Maybe that explains some of his behaviors nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah,
Right. Head injury.
Yeah.
What a great lead-in to start the show, Greg.
Oh,
About
yeah.
Chris Holmes being hit with a frozen ham. Welcome to Rat Salad Review. Today we have a special guest, Bill Lindsey from the band Impaler.
Hello.
What's up? What's going on, Bill?
Hey, just sitting here with a nice cold ham, talking to you guys. Warming up for the show.
Is it warm up over there? It's cold here. We're having like it's going to be like in the 30s, I think, tomorrow. We're going to have a frost.
Where are you?
New York.
Oh, New York. I should have known.
Yeah.
I like your governor. He talks straight common sense.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, we don't want to talk politics anyway.
No.
We're here to talk rock and roll.
We'll get all these bad
That's
comments.
right.
What are you talking about this guy for? And, yeah, we don't need that stuff. But, yeah.
Yeah, this is
it was
about
like-
shock rock.
Right.
This is about shock rock. And it kind of fits New York right now. We're like in a shock.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you guys got hit very hard. We were supposed to come there and play in September.
No, really?
Yeah. Rage of Armageddon Fest. Ed Firesleep is a booker out there. And he had to cancel it because he just said it's going to take too long for New York and New Jersey to get back on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants it to be, successful. He doesn't want to have people spread 6 feet apart from each other.
Of course. And everybody wearing masks and stuff in the audience. That'd be kind of strange.
Well, I wouldn't mind that. That would be
Right.
cool.
At least they'd be there. Yeah.
But
That would fit in with your show, actually.
well, I might sound better with a mask over my face. I don't know.
Oh.
But so yeah, and then he was not sure that the venue would even survive, being closed this long. And we were supposed to play. It was in a hotel, and
Really?
the name escapes me right now. But in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Oh, Brooklyn. Okay. All right. Not too far from me then. About an hour from me.
Yeah, we played there. We played at St. Vitus. And have you ever gone over to the St. Vitus bar?
I know of it. I've never been there.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
That's where a lot of the metal bands are going lately. I noticed.
Yeah, it's a great venue and great staff. And then a place called Lucky 13, and that's also in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I've heard that one too.
Yeah. They had dancer bars out on there's a bar you walk through, and then you get back to the music room, and then they have dancer poles on the bar. So after things get rocking, they have dancers up on the bars. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So you got entertainment in the front and in the back.
That's right.
How many shows did you have lined up for this year?
Well, we're going to fly out for that as a one-off. Typically, like when we do things like that, we kind of wrap it around a road trip. But we were just going to fly out and do that show. We don't travel as much as we used to. I don't enjoy being on the road as much anymore. Right. I like to be home. Yeah. I like to be with my family and walk my dog and do those kinds of things. So, so what we try to do is play more festivals and things like that, where we can play, and a bunch of people from around the region will come to the festival and see us. Like we did Ragnarok in Chicago, and Northern Wisconsin has one each summer that we do, and so we try and do that now. Yeah. So just not traveling as much.
Yeah. Also, it makes more sense too, because that way people are going to be at those shows.
Yeah, you don't have to play Tuesday night in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because that's what's available.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Fort Wayne is great to play. I mean, I play Fort Wayne any day of the week, but just playing on Mondays and Tuesdays and things like that
just doesn't cut it, especially nowadays. I mean, when I was looking up some info about your band, and so you have I think your first album is 35 years this month.
Yeah, it's 35 years. Coming up next week. Yeah. It came out the same day as Bonded by Blood and a couple other Combat releases. Venom, Possessed, we were all released on the same day that year, 35 years ago.
No, not too.
The copy of Possessed I have, the Combat flyer, mentions Rise of the Mutants on the bottom. It's got a pic. It shows a bunch of the releases and Impalers at the bottom.
Yeah.
I think right underneath of Bonded by Blood, actually.
Yeah, we all came around. I think, Important out in New York, they were the distributor. They were the mothership for Combat and IRD, which is the first label that we put out Rise of the Mutants on. They also, I think, released Slayer, Hell Awaits, I think, on the same day too, because they distributed all the bands. They distributed Megaforce and Metal Blade and any other metal label at that time, and alternative labels too. But they were a huge distribution, and that's why our records got into places like malls. We were in it seems nowadays our releases are more geared towards metal shops, punk and metal shops. But back then, having that distribution through Important was huge, because all the malls and everything, carried their product. So Impaler was sneaking into the malls there too, so corrupting the youth of America.
Yeah, man. Well, and that's why I always loved the fact that you called it shock rock too, because I was really into Alice Cooper and those 70s bands, because my dad was into that type of stuff and the new wave of British heavy metal and all. So when I first heard Rise of the Mutants, I was like, this is great. It's like somebody turned Iggy and the Stooges into a metal band.
Yeah, that's a huge compliment. Happy birthday, Iggy.
Yes, happy birthday, Iggy. He turned 75.
Wow.
He still kicks ass on people that are half his age,
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. Such a vibrant performer.
Absolutely.
God, I didn't know he was that old already. Wow.
All those guys are getting up there.
Yeah.
When I heard you do the Raw Power cover on If We Had Brains the first time, I went nuts, though. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we had to pay homage to the Stooges. I mean, the Stooges and the MC5 bands like that had kind of not been, I don't want to say been forgotten. That's a bad way to frame it, but just make people of the new generation aware of those bands that kicked so much ass in 1969 and 1970. So they were definitely huge influences as we were forming and starting to record, and wanted to inject that into our releases. So, if you don't hear it in the sound, then we made it obvious by playing one of the Stooges songs. So.
Now, I have a friend of mine who's a huge Husker Du fan, or Husker Du, however you pronounce that name. How was it working with Bob Mould?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. Bob loves pro wrestling.
Yes.
Probably even more than I do, and I love it a lot. And so
we'll
we
talk about that then as well, because I'm a wrestling fan too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I grew up in the '70s, late '60s, and I watched it with my grandpa all the time. So I'm really partial to old school, and we had the AWA here in Minnesota, so it was a mecca of regional wrestling here. It was he was the big game in town before Vince took over, the whole country. But so we had that in common, and our love for stuff like the Stooges. He dug that we were doing Search and Destroy on the album that he produced for us. One of our first couple of shows, the first and second shows, we played at this place called Goofy's Upper Deck in Minneapolis. It doesn't exist anymore, but all the bands would play. The local Husker Du replacements, Loud Fast Rules, who became Soul Asylum later, they all played at the Upper Deck. And then the touring bands would come through, like Dead Kennedys played their Black Flag, the Big Boys. So it was a mecca of punk rock, really. But I was inspired by what the punk rock bands were doing in our town, as opposed to the metal bands were playing covers in bars, and doing them great. But I didn't want to play other people's music exclusively. I wanted to turn it around and play all of our music, and then maybe throw in a cover of somebody that we loved,
Right.
And so that's what the punks are doing. And so we took our demo tape straight over to Minneapolis and went to the punk clubs, and they embraced us because we sounded like, Motorhead and Venom of the time, which were crossovers to the punks. And that's how we got rolling. And Husker Du, Grant and Bob came down to the first two shows that we played. As a matter of fact, Grant had a side project called Noble Mice, and they supported us, played with us the first or second show. And so then they asked us, they go, we're going to play at First Avenue because we got this record coming out, and everything falls apart, and we're going to go on tour, and we're kicking it off at First Avenue. Do you want to play with us? And we're like, yeah. So like I think our fourth show was in the main room playing with Husker Du. And
wow.
That was amazing. So when it came time to do our full length album, after Rise of the Mutants had run its cycle, we had a full length written and ready to go. And so I was talking to the people at Combat, and they were like, well, Rise of the Mutants, you could probably use a little boost in the production department, for the album. And I was like, yeah, well, don't want to make it sound like it was recorded on a cassette, Japanese cassette recorder, but that's the beauty. That's the wonderful thing about Rise of the Mutants,
Right.
But and so they said, is there anybody in your town that does producing that you could get a hold of and see if they want to produce your band? And I said, yeah, I can think of two people right off the top of my head, because Grant and Bob both were producing other bands. Bob was producing Soul Asylum at the same time he took on our project, so we were both in and out of the studio at the same time. We were using the same studio, Nicollet over in Minneapolis, where a lot of different stuff was recorded over there, replacement stuff. And so that's long, make a short story long. It was great.
That's fun. That's cool now, because I when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, my friend's going to love hearing that, because he's a huge Bob Mould fan.
Well, Husker Du was huge in New York, too. I mean, they were, they were in the New York Times best releases of the year, like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
I think one year they had Prince, The Replacements, and Husker Du. All three were in the top 10 of the New York Times best albums of the year or something like that. Yeah, it was quite amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And even he's my friend's a huge fan of Grant Hart as well. He went to actually I couldn't believe the one day Grant Hart played out in Manhattan, I believe. One day we had like the worst snowstorm here, and the show should have been canceled because like you couldn't go anywhere. And my friend ended up just driving his car out there. He got stuck over a bridge somewhere, but he ended up making it to the show. And and Grant Hart still played. There wasn't that many people there because a lot of people didn't show up, but he still played the show.
I'm sure it was nothing for Grant to go through a snowstorm because we do that, several times a year around here. Yeah, but rest in peace, Grant Hart.
Yeah.
I met him when we were kids. We went to a church camp together, and not a lot of people know that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. We went to Camp Onamia together in junior high, and the thing that we bonded on was Marx Brothers movies. He did a great imitation of Groucho Marx, and we used to just riff off each other, like doing quotes from Marx Brothers movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that his mom kind of worked in my neighborhood, not very far from my house. So a couple times he went to work with his mom, and I rode my bike up and met him, and then he came and ate lunch at my house and hung out during the afternoon. Yeah, we bumped in the neighborhood.
Did you ever try starting a band together?
No, because I kind of lost track of him after that. And then this is how I ended up hooking up with him again. Was there were two things that happened. One was there was this great record store that was in Minnesota in St. Paul called Northern Lights, where we got all of our. There was a great import place in the back called Twin Cities Import, and so they brought in all the new wave of heavy metal stuff that we could ever want or need, and we just flocked there and went and bought our stuff there. And they ended up helping Impaler get connected with Combat too. But that's a different story. So I was going into Northern Lights, and Grant was coming out, and he goes, "Bill, yeah, hey, how are you doing?" He goes, "I got a band together called Husker Du, and we recorded some songs down in the basement here. You want to hear some of the tapes?" And so I went down, and he played me tapes that they just taped their rehearsals on a boombox.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got to hear some of that stuff. And then it wasn't very long after that, I went to go see Patti Smith at the St. Paul Civic Center Theater, and we were outside waiting to get in, and Grant was at that show too. And there he was. And so, hey, how's it going? So then we exchanged numbers, and we got together a couple times and listened to records and stuff. And then, and then Husker Du kept expanding and growing, and then Impaler started, and so
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't hang around together after things got rolling. We lost track again, lost touch because he was very busy and traveling, and everybody, But I would see him every once in a while. And was always friendly.
Yeah, that's nice, cool.
So, Bill, I was curious. I was watching the video you posted earlier of the first Metal Fest you were talking about that you put together in St. Paul. Killer video, by the way, in '86. But
that's kind of like getting a picture of the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or something, on primitive equipment. Yeah, that was we put that show together with. At first, when we started, we played with a lot of the punk bands because, like I said, a lot of the bands in town had the mindset of being cover bands. But it took a year or two for some other bands to form, like Power Mad and Vile was one of our former guitar players, formed a band called Vile. And then there was other bands that were kind of crossover, like Death Squad and Iron Fist and stuff like that. So we actually had enough bands to pull together to have a festival. So, yeah. So we did this at this old blues club where we had to carry all the equipment upstairs because the music room was upstairs. For an old blues guy, that's nothing to carry his acoustic guitar up these stairs. Right. But we had to carry all our metal gear up the stairs, It was like, yeah. So that was fun. But was you had a question about it?
Oh, I was gonna say, and then from various different playbills and things I have over the years, you guys at First Ave just opened and played with so many awesome bands. There, any real favorites or standouts from that?
Oh, well, anytime you play at First Avenue, it's pretty awesome. I think one of my all-time favorite shows at First Avenue, or shows in general, I would definitely put it in my top 3 for sure. It was just recently, a couple of years ago, we played with Sabbath, and it was amazing. It was just a really great, and what was the other band? Empire. They do Star Wars, Galactic Empire.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was us 3 bands, and it was just like such a entertaining night of bands that had a presentation,
Yeah.
But anytime you play in First Avenue or the Entry, it's always great. I enjoyed playing with Plasmatics, and got to sit and talk to West Beach, during that sound check and stuff. He was
awesome.
Really nice. Yeah, so it was really great to meet him, because I'm huge. Plasmatics were a big influence on us too. So it was just amazing to talk to him. And Raven was fun. There's so many different ones. Zodiac Mind Warp was cool.
Really?
That's
rad.
Yeah. Of course, the Husker Du show was awesome too. That was really, we were just babes, and to be playing on that stage in that room was very cool, because I'd gone to concerts there, like Joe Perry Project and the Ramones and stuff like that in the main room before I got to play in there. And so when we did, that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, seeing Ian Hunter there with Mott the Hoople 74 was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish I would have gone. That was like on a Monday night or something, wasn't it, or Tuesday?
It was.
Yeah.
It was Monday night.
I had a stretch of concerts to go to, and every damn concert was on Tuesday night for like 5 concerts. And I was like, God, because I won't work the next day. That's a young man's game. I just take a day off the following day. So I burned a lot of vacation days going on those Tuesday night shows. So I don't think I don't know. I really should have gone.
It was an amazing show. It was really, really cool to see Ariel and Morgan Fisher too.
Yeah, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, and that was the first time I ever heard the Suburbs too. They were, I got really into them. They're a real cool band.
Oh yeah, they're a big part of the music scene from the '80s and beyond.
Oh, here's something I was reading earlier. You had a big thing with Tipper Gore.
Oh, the PMRC.
Yeah.
The Filthy 15.
Yeah, she made us a lot of money. You tell teenage kids not to go buy something.
Oh yeah.
Right. They're gonna go buy it.
Of course.
You got to hide it under their beds or in their locker at school or whatever. Yeah. No, even at a young age, I was in my early 20s, and I was like, it really seemed like political posturing to me. And sure enough, several years later, there's Gore and the Clintons on MTV, casting for the young vote, and I was just like, man, that's hypocritical, isn't it? But that's politics,
Right.
But yeah,
Washington wives.
Yeah, they held our. So this is back in the days, before the internet and before cable TV or any of that kind of stuff. And so I'd get a call like from somebody over at Combat, and they were going, "Hey, they were holding your album up on Nightline last night." And I was like, "Really? Why?" And they said, "Because there's these wives in Washington that are upset about rock music, and so they're protesting it. And you're one of the bands." And I was like, "Are you kidding? That's awesome! That's awesome!" And so then they call me up, and say, they had your album on Sally Jesse Raphael, or they had your album on Phil Donahue." And then they were sending me Xerox of newspapers like the LA Times and different stuff that had articles, and they had Rise of the Mutants pictured in the paper in cities I never even played in, at that point. So that was kind of mind-boggling. And then at about the same time, there's a local chapter that was here called the Peters Brothers. They were record evangelists that had record burnings, and they had a whole big video presentation that they go to schools and churches about the truth about rock, and it was all about the evils of rock music. And my youngest brother, he went to a private school, and they actually came to his school, and he was sitting watching the presentation, and all of a sudden there's Rise of the Mutants is on their screen, and they're ranting and raving about how disgusting Impaler is. After the presentation, my brother approached him and said, "Hey, that band Impaler, that's my brother's band." And they're going, "You're kidding. We thought they were from Los Angeles or London or something. They didn't even know we were from Minnesota." Wow. So then that kind of fired up, a battle between our factions, because we went on different TV shows and radio shows and debated with them about our stance, on rock music and their stance on rock music. And it was, obviously different.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was all good stuff. And it was like, it generated tons of press and TV and radio time, just having these people dislike us. So I laughed all the way to the bank is what I like to say.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about the complaints was always all of them seemed to have such a hang up about the piece of raw meat.
Yeah. But mothers were always trying to get their kids to eat their liver. So I don't know. I thought I was more of a role model, really.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's all taken straight from Night of the Living Dead. That was such a influential movie to me when I saw it. And I just saw so many ideas to use in rock presentation from all the horror movies I watched back then. There was a big influence on how we were visually, presenting ourselves. So, yeah, that's from Night of the Living Dead. That's the whole scene where the kid's truck blows up and all the zombies come out and start chowing on the body parts. And one of them has a chunk of liver in his mouth almost exactly like I do on that cover.
Yep. And that's a great image, and that's obviously one of my favorite things about Impaler. Love the stage show.
Thank you. Yeah, we always try hard to entertain people. We want them to be entertained.
And really, you're probably the only band besides Alice that has continued to do that. It's Kiss, and I don't know. I haven't seen Nasty Savage recently. I don't know if I know that they play intermittently, but I don't know how much of their show they still do or anything. I couldn't comment on that. But it'd be awesome if they were still smashing TV sets.
War is still around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
War will never die.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the band Saint Madness?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Yeah. So they're still going around.
Yeah. They're out of Arizona, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I corresponded with him a couple times over the years.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah,
Hopefully
we had. What's that?
Oh, I said hopefully Pile Driver's still rocking it up in Canada.
Oh,
Pile Driver? Oh, yeah, Pile Driver. You should check them out.
Sex with Satan. I meant more the straight horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be, there were a lot of bands that Lizzie Borden and Wasp and different bands that definitely flew the flag for a time. We played with Lizzie Borden probably mid 2000s or something, and he didn't really have a stage show. They kind of had scrims over the amps, and there was they just played the music pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think he pretty much stripped his show, the stage show down. I think a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
he just like puts different masks on and stuff like that. He don't do like what he used to.
Well, now he was here like a year ago, and he was wearing some big giant Kiss boots. I saw some pictures, and so it looked like he had gone back just really recently.
Oh, really?
I think it was 6 months ago, maybe that he
good.
was here. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. We just do what we do. You know, I have a motto: I can only worry about my own band. So,
very true.
I'm so busy just worrying about what we have. You know, keeping things going and making plans and coordinating things that I just kind of live in my own little world in that respect.
Yeah. Now, being together for so long, and I was looking through like all the, because I figured you've been together for like 35 years, you couldn't have all the same band members still in the band. That's rare.
Yeah, well, Meaty Bob passed away
okay.
a few years ago.
Sure.
We had, oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Something slid into the screen. Never mind. So, for a while, Mike Torak and Court Holly were in Impaler with me at the same time. Mike plays in a cover band, and they're quite busy on the weekends, and so he kind of bowed out to continue to work with this cover band. Court's still with me. Everybody kind of took a little break here and there, you know, as life came up. Court laid low for a while when his kids were little, and he was going to go to Votech school, and so we had a different bass player for a while. We only have had 2 bass players over the years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so things are still very, you know, friendly, even with people that have been in the band in the past. So every once in a while, someone comes back and comes off the bench and does a show or something with us. And that's always fun. Like Johnny Strattinger, who was on Wake Up Screaming, recently we did a Gods cover for a Gods tribute. And he's a huge Gods fan like Court and I. So I said, Johnny, you should come and play with us on this tribute. That'd be a blast, you know? And so he did, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool. Are you guys planning any more new music besides the split, or?
Yeah, well, actually, that as soon as we can start getting together, we actually have some songs that are already pretty much partially written, and we're still in the process of writing some more stuff. So that's going to be our plan now after coming out of this, because who knows how many shows will be available to us or anything like that. So we're going to concentrate on getting a new release put together. We recorded, well, we didn't record it, but we wrote a new a sequel to their Krampus song. Every year we do a Merry Krampus show, and we have a song called Krampus, but we wrote this song called Krampus Has Returned that we played at the last one, and that's definitely going to be on the next album, because Krampus is about as metal as Christmas gets. So,
of course, yeah.
Awesome.
So that's going to be on the new album. And then we have a couple other things, one called So Much Blood, and one called Thermonuclear Man, and another one called The Great Hereafter that are in the works. And then we're going to use that to springboard and then continue to write over the summer and probably record in the fall if everything goes well. You know, if everything goes as planned. If we don't have a wave 2 or 3 of the coronavirus or something like that, you know.
Well, we're supposed to.
Yeah, that's what they're planning on it. So I don't, you know, that's laid plans of mice and men. You know, as I've gotten older, I just don't get too worked up. You know, this is a plan that we have, and usually we have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. So that's what works right now.
Hearing you guys do Evil Woman, Don't You Play Your Games With Me acoustic was a pretty cool thing that tied me over. So,
God, we just got that in under the wire, didn't we? We played our first ever unplugged acoustic set at the Minnesota History Center in St. Paul, and it was on Tuesday, and Friday was when everything got locked down. So they we got that in just under the wire. Everything went south after that.
Wow. That's strange though, because you guys are still not really hit too bad, are you? I don't know what's going on over there.
We're not what?
You didn't get hit too bad with the virus yet, though, did you? Or
Well, I'll tell you. I work at the only Minnesota coronavirus specific hospital.
Oh, really?
Where I work, yeah, Bethesda Hospital in St. Paul. And right now, we're the only one that's set up to care for coronavirus patients. And the surge is still coming. We every other day, our census grows. So pretty soon we're going to be at full capacity, and then we're going to have to set up another hospital to be corona ready. So, but no, we're not as bad, nowhere near as New York. And our governor here, I think, in my opinion, has been really good at leading us, the leadership through the thing as it's been going on. And I think for the most part, Minnesotans have kind of been compliant and good about, trying to social distance and be compliant. Not everybody is, but I think in large numbers we have been, and I think that's helped us too. Yeah. But I mean, we're not like Wyoming where they maybe only have 6 cases altogether. I don't know. I'm exaggerating, but Wyoming and Idaho and places like that, they're minimal.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, they're lucky. Yeah, because here it's nuts. Like everybody's just kind of. I drive back because I still work. I work at the post office, and coming home, there's still as many cars as there are on a regular day. I'm like, where the hell are these people going? What are they doing? And just and Walmarts are full, and just weird.
It's. I gotta say, going to work, there's no traffic here, and if you go out on a Sunday morning, there's I don't even see another car on the freeway.
Really?
For 5 or 10 minutes. So I think people are being compliant, but I can see people starting to get itchy about wanting to get back to normal. And so I think more people maybe are venturing out.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. We've been locked down for a while now. So it's just a lot of people have had enough.
Yeah. Well, I definitely sympathize with everybody, and I feel the same way as everybody, but it's a very real thing, and I see it, in our hospital. And so I just try and tell people to be diligent and stick with it. It sucks, but you just got to ride that wave and then get over it and get over the hump. Yeah. Well, enough of my preaching.
We need that though. People need to know.
It's true. I have to say, I mean, I don't work in the medical field, but, hardware stores, essential business too. And I see people all day, every day. For the most part, everybody's pretty good natured and compliant. I mean, they all just want to help each other out. You get your occasional people that like to stand there and bitch about their rights, and they're going to do it anyway because they're always fun, but few and far between. The biggest problem is just, you have to practice the distancing, so it gets a little stressful because you still have to deal with the same amount of people in the same amount of time.
Right.
But
yeah, it's crazy. It's unprecedented. We really haven't had anything like this since the Spanish flu, and that was back in 1901 or something like that.
I was not here then, so I don't know.
Me either. I've only heard about it, but the populations weren't as dense as they are now. Right. It was just a whole different ballgame. So it's really uncharted ground in many ways for us. So
yeah, it's scary shit.
Yeah.
Before I let everybody down, how do you work on music? Because a lot of people now, everybody's doing everything through emails and internet. Do you guys get together in a room and work on songs, or
we have a rehearsal space, so we get together. That's the best way that we do it. When you're in the room with the guys and everything, a certain kind of energy. I have done it the other way where I've gotten like files from people with song riffs and stuff, and that's been all right. But I prefer to knock it out in the practice space and play with the fellas.
Yeah. Are you trying to do that now? Like do things digitally at all, or are you just
No,
gonna wait?
we haven't. So I work at the COVID-19 hospital, and then one of our guitar players is a paramedic, and so that's been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
you guys got no time.
No, we haven't been together since we did the acoustic set back in was that in February? No, that was March 11th. So that was the last time we played together, was March 11th.
Wow. Actually, another band that we've had on the show, I was just talking to their bass player the other day. They're actually doing their stuff on Skype now.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that. Yeah, now that I know how to run this thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. My other guys are primitive like me, so I don't know. By the time we fumbled with it and got it all together, we probably could have written about 3 songs down at the practice space.
Right.
So, yeah. We'll get back down there.
Yeah.
Could always do a Skype live music video of "It Won't Die," though.
Yeah, if I could figure the thing out.
Yeah, right.
What got you into doing all the shock rock type stuff?
Well, like I was telling you earlier, when we were talking about wrestling, I grew up in I was born in 61, so I grew up through the 60s and the 70s. So there was a lot of great pop culture back then, So it was things like pro wrestling. When I was a kid and during Halloween, it was like there were armies of kids out trick-or-treating and everybody was dressed up and it was like a massive thing. And I'm so grateful that I grew up at that time because my kids even, my son's in his 30s and my daughter in her 20s, their Halloweens are nothing like mine growing up. No. And I don't know if they'll ever go back to that again, but so things like that. And then, there were 2 shows that were on here. One was called Creature Feature and the other one was called Horror Incorporated. And on Friday and Saturday nights, they'd show old horror movies. And so my brother and I would just sit in our room and we'd eat that up, And then on Saturday or Sunday afternoons, they'd have matinee movies. And it was usually like a Godzilla movie or Rodan, Mm-hmm. So, and then the rock and roll, of course, the classic rock in the late 60s and the 70s with Alice Cooper and Slade and Bachman Turner Overdrive was one of the first bands that I got into. And yeah, so it was just a really great time for all those things to come together in my mind and spark my creative, energies. Yeah. And I guess I've never really grown up since then. I still like the same things. So I don't know. You take that for what you want. But yeah, so just a lot of wonderful things to be inspired by.
Yeah, it's cool. Greg, how do you want to step over you?
Mm-hmm. No, that's fine.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
I saw you saying something. I wasn't going to talk
about. I apologize. Now I can't remember.
I love you, sweet leaf.
Yes, exactly.
All right, wrestling. Favorite wrestling match?
Oh man, I saw a lot of wrestling matches. We used to go to them. I watched it with my grandpa when I was a kid. And then as I became a teenager, my friends and I, we would go down to the Minneapolis Auditorium and see a lot of the live shows there. So I saw a lot of different stuff. So I'd have to ask you the question, my favorite match on a television show, my favorite live match, or my favorite pay-per-view match? Which one you want? All 3?
Yeah, sure, all 3. Let's do all 3. Why not?
Well, so like I was saying, we're from Minnesota, so the AWA was massive here. And the biggest babyface through all the years, the 60s and 70s into the 80s, was Vern Gagne. He was always the hero, and he was actually the promoter of the AWA.
Yeah.
And so I was at Vern Gagne's retirement match where he wrestled against Nick Bockwinkel.
Oh, wow.
And that was quite and at that time, they'd gone from doing shows in the smaller Minneapolis auditorium to doing the shows in our Civic Center. So like 17,000 people in a packed Civic Center, to say goodbye to Vern Gagne. That one always sticks out in my mind because both Nick Bockwinkel and Vern were workers even as they got older,
Right, yeah.
I saw the Road Warriors in the second row wrestle the Fabulous Ones. That was pretty amazing.
Wow.
I always liked Jesse Ventura and Adrian Adonis when they're in the East-West connection, so I saw them wrestle in a cage match with the High Flyers, who were Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell, who went on to be in the Killer Bees in the WWF. So, I mean, those were great. Seeing the Crusher and Mad Dog Vachon wrestle, that was amazing.
You saw the good stuff.
That was amazing. I mean, so my favorite TV match is when I was in grade school, and it was Mad Dog Vachon and the Butcher, and they were wrestling against the Crusher and the Bruiser on TV. This was the TV show, and all of them were busted open and just bleeding all over the place, on regular local television, And this must have been like 69 or 70 or something like that. Wow. That one always sticks with me too, because that was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These guys are killing each other,
Yeah.
And then I guess one of my favorites on a pay-per-view is probably the Hell in the Cell match with Mankind and
I knew you would say that.
Yeah. I love the Hart Foundation when they were, and then Bret Hart and Stone Cold, the Never Surrender match. That was amazing.
I don't remember that one.
It was a WrestleMania, I think, and it was Stone Cold. And
was that the one where he passed out?
Yeah. He wouldn't.
Yes, okay.
He wouldn't tap out.
Yeah.
He wouldn't tap out.
Yeah,
so
that was fucking awesome. He was bleeding like.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And then some of those table chairs and ladder matches, the early ones, those were pretty amazing. Actually, the first time I saw Sabu and the Sandman do one of those in the ECW, that's definitely a favorite too. How about you? What are some of your favorites?
A lot of my favorites are from ECW because I used to go see that live every once in a while.
That would have been amazing.
It was amazing because that place, it wasn't a big place, but it was just like being there. The what do you call it? The aura, I guess, of being in that building.
Sure.
And that place was just packed with people. It was over packed. It was like beyond sold out.
Yeah.
But it was just amazing to see. Any match there was just really good. Just everything I ever saw in that building was like the best thing I've ever saw in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it was so grassroots, and everybody was there because they loved it. Even the wrestlers were there because they believed in that and loved it. And that was a really amazing time in wrestling. They were putting the big guys to shame, as far as I was concerned. Yeah.
That took over everything for me. ECW, it's insane how that used to be. But do you still watch the new stuff at all?
No, I don't really. If I watch old stuff, I've got stuff on DVD, and I really have become a big Lucha Libre fan. So I like to watch. Even El Santo movies are awesome because there's always a wrestling match in the middle of those. He's wrestling a werewolf or something. It's amazing.
We actually have a wrestling show on our network. Maybe we should hook you up with the show.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, they watch old Japanese wrestling matches.
Oh yeah. There were some crazy matches over there because like Terry Funk and Mick Foley and a lot, Andre the Giant, almost every Bruiser Brody, everybody went over there. Bruiser Brody's another amazing one.
Yeah.
He wrestled here in the AWA for a while. We had a character called the Sheik, and he wasn't the original Sheik, not Ed Farhat, but the Sheik Adnan L. Casey. And Bruiser was like his his paid assassin. So that was really a great angle. Brody would always come out, I work for the Sheik. The Sheik pays me good money. And then he beat somebody up, but yeah. And I had a grandma down in Texas who was really into Texas wrestling. So when I'd go down and visit in Texas, I'd always sit and watch wrestling with her, and she got into it like a TV show parody of a grandma loving wrestling. She was rocking in her chair and screaming, yelling at the bad guys, and so I was blessed to have a grandpa here in Minnesota that enjoyed wrestling, and then a grandma down in Texas who enjoyed it too. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's in my blood, I guess.
None of my parents liked it. Especially my father. He's like, turn that crap off. He never liked me watching that. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I saw that match I was telling you about with Mad Dog and the Butcher, when they were bleeding, I was at a friend's house, and his dad came down, and he was making fun of it the whole time. He was, oh, there's a couple of sloppy eaters. Look, they got ketchup all over themselves. Like, that's not ketchup. That's blood. So,
did you get to meet any wrestlers?
Oh, yeah. I've met quite a few over the years. Actually, we had a pair of managers at one time in the 80s, and one of them was a cameraman for the AWA, so I got to go to the matches. And so I hung out with the Nasty Boys a bit.
Oh, wow.
And I met, when the Rockers were here, that was Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, so I met them a couple times. And some of the other guys like DJ Peterson and some of the people that weren't so big, didn't go national, but yeah. And then so there was a place called Libation Station that we used to sneak into when we were like too young to actually be in there, but they didn't encourage it very heavily in the 70s, and Hulk Hogan was in there just hanging out, talking to the bouncers and stuff. I think later on that night he jammed with the band, but I didn't see that, but I went up and shook his hand. Hey, brother. I'm trying to. Oh, and Mad Dog. I met Mad Dog Vachon. Him and the Butcher were at Milwaukee Metal Fest that we played one year, and they had a table set up, and they were selling, videos and autographs and taking pictures of people. And so I told him a true story about. There was an announcer named Marty O'Neill who was here before Mean Gene was our commentator. His name was Marty O'Neill, and he lived almost exactly between my grandpa's house and our house. And so my grandpa would be driving us home, and Marty O'Neill would be out watering his grass in the front lawn. My grandpa would always toot the horn, and we'd wave to him and stuff, and he'd wave back. So I told Mad Dog that story, and Mad Dog, Marty O'Neill was a true gentleman. He was exactly as you saw him on TV, off stage, a true gentleman. And I was like, cool. So I got to talk to Mad Dog. That was cool. That was probably my favorite wrestler I met was Mad Dog, and the Butcher was really cool too. So, yeah,
that's cool.
I got to meet Mick Foley actually a few times.
God, that would be great.
Yeah, he was awesome. He actually, my mother used to own a store, and I used to work down there with her. And one day the door opens up, and then he's walking in. I'm like, "Who the hell? Why are you here?" He just shaved his head too, so I didn't really recognize him right away. But he ended up walking into the wrong store. He thought our store was a different one, but he was a pretty cool guy. I was like really scared of meeting him because I was young, so just seeing him come in there, and I was just like in shock a little bit. I didn't know what to say or anything, but it was cool. It was really cool to see him there. Nice, very nice guy. And I saw him a couple times at a book signing.
Yeah,
and then
he seems very cool. Yeah. I would love to meet him.
And actually, a friend of mine just actually helped him move.
Oh, really?
Weeks ago, yeah, before this whole virus thing started. Right
Where the
before.
hell was he moving to?
I don't know, but it must have been close by because he lives not too far away from where I am. So.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
I thought of another wrestler I met. I got to meet King Jerry Lawler. We were on tour. We were in Nebraska, and on this tour that we were at, the WWF, they were still the WWF at the time, were doing road shows, and they were in almost every town. They were there the night before or the night after us. So we went to this mall to get some breakfast. It was early, And I go, holy shit, that's the King. And sure enough, it was. So I actually got a picture with him. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Can I get a picture with you? Yeah. He was kind of low key, you know. And then the camera came up and he got this cheesy smile on his face. Like, thanks, King. You know, I didn't want to bother him or be a hanger on or anything, you know. So, but yeah. You know, and actually another story. Am I getting too carried away with the wrestling here?
No. I'm not a huge wrestling fan anymore, but you know, I'm.
Yeah, I like the old stuff. I mean, if I want to watch some wrestling, my son gets the WWE channel,
the network,
yeah, the network. So I like to watch the old documentaries and stuff like that. That's what I'm about. But so the very first Monday Nitro was here at the Mall of America.
Yep.
And so I took my son and my friend Brad, our guitar player, he went, and so we saw that whole thing.
Wow.
And at the end, when it was all over, you know, people were milling around, and so I said hey to Eric Bischoff, and Nick Bockwinkel was there too, and so I shook his hand and told him thanks for all the good memories and stuff. But that was fun to see that and see it with my son, you know, because he was
part of history there.
Yeah, because that was the very first one. It was in the Rotunda, and we had to go there in the morning and get wristbands, and then you could just come, you know, an hour before or something like that to get in line, and then you were assured a seat. So yeah, it was fun stuff.
And it was the first show of that, and then the first appearance of Lex Luger when he just like appeared out of nowhere
at that match.
Yeah.
And Hogan was still a face, so it was before the New World Order and all that. Yeah. It was just cool to see it all unfold live. And Mean Gene was there, you know. And Mean Gene was our announcer here for many years before he did Adam. Right. So,
we're talking about all this wrestling stuff. Rest in peace to Howard Finkel, by the way.
Yeah, Howard. Yeah. That was sad to see.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. He always seemed like a nice guy. I don't know if you ever watched that Legend House that was on the network.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, watch that. You will love that show.
Okay, I'll watch.
Like all the classic stuff. Watch that because it's kind of in a way it's sad to see because you see all the old wrestlers and how they are now. But it's very interesting because you can see their personalities. It's just especially Roddy Piper. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, that's who my story is about.
Yes, Greg has the best. I think Greg got the best meeting wrestler story.
Let's hear it. Lay it on us, man.
So at the time, I was working for a independent little horror movie company in Jersey and doing effects for them, a little bit of background acting, and they were doing a Monster Mania convention in Cherry Hill, and Roddy was there doing autographs because he was in They Live, and I had the table next to him, and I was just joking back and forth with him all day. Super cool dude, but pretty much everybody that was coming up to talk to him was really just there to talk about They Live, and he was getting bored. So started talking to him about wrestling, and he's like, hey, let's go get a beer.
Yeah.
So go and hang out with him, and man, we just got hammered, and he was fun. Great guy. And around that time, he had done a guest voice spot on Robot Chicken.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I actually got him in the middle of the Crown Plaza Hotel, one of the biggest hotels in Jersey where they were having the Monster Mania Con, to grab a Slim Jim and go, holy shit, a Slim Jim! I fucking love Slim Jims!
Is that when Macho Man was doing them?
No, that's, he was riffing on Macho Man.
Yeah.
That was the joke he did on Robot Chicken.
Oh, I didn't see the Robot Chicken.
Oh, okay. That was why I had him do it there. But
that's awesome.
Hanging out at the bar, talking about everything. One time he forgot how strong he was, clapped me on the back, sent me flying about 10 feet. That was funny. But I was telling him one of my favorite matches ever is WrestleMania 3, the I Quit match against Adrian Adonis. And he goes, hey, you know what? You know why that was such a shock? Because I was supposed to lose that. But halfway through that match, I said, I'm not losing to a fucking pretty boy. So everybody was shocked because, he basically broke kayfabe there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Roddy Piper, man, what
we went
What a
to a
present.
Phillies game the next day, though, because we were talking about baseball, and that was about 2008, 2009, around when they won the World Series. And yeah, we went into a Phillies game. Super into baseball. Real cool guy, though. Great personality.
The Phillies in the early 90s was one of my favorite baseball teams. Kruk, Lenny Dykstra,
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Dalton, Wild Thing Mitch Williams. I love that team. And then Toronto beat them in the World Series. But, you know, like Lemmy says, born to lose.
Yeah.
But what a conglomeration of characters that team was. That was awesome. And then Jim Fregosi be smoking cigarettes in the dugout, you know.
Yeah.
They'd flash to the dugout, and Fergosi's like smoking a cigarette in there. Fregosi had a connection to the Minnesota Twins, so I love that. I love the Phillies back then, and I still follow them here and there.
Yeah, they're still pretty good here and there. I mean, that's my team, but sometimes there's more interesting games to watch.
Yeah. They kind of took a dive when the Twins did. So, like, both of my teams were, like, just, like, down in the basement. And it was like, well, they both suck at the same time. Well, that means they'll probably both get good at the same time then. That's my National League team, and then the Twins are my American League team. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's the way it is for me, too. You know, I mean, I honestly wasn't really into the Twins before I moved here, but watching them now, I like them.
And the Saints. We have a independent league here, the Saints, and Bill Murray's part owner. So sometimes you go to the game and there's Bill Murray taking tickets. I swear to God. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. They won the championship this past summer. So I don't think we'll see any baseball this year. So
yeah, probably not. That sucks. I hope there's still football. But before I forget again, talking about classic WWF and everything, and watching it on the network, I watched one of my favorite Survivor Series 97 the other day, which has probably my favorite best ending moment to a match ever, when Bret Hart spits in Vince McMahon's face. And there's been a lot of
the Montreal Screwjob.
Yep. There's been a lot of recently brought up conspiracies about it, that the whole thing was a work. I disagree. What do you guys think?
No, it wasn't a work.
That's what you never know as a wrestling fan, you know. You think you're a smart mark, and then it turn out you don't know shit, you know. So
I don't see Bret letting that happen, though.
No, it didn't. That was real life.
I think it was. I think he was. Yeah, because remember Vince had a black eye the next day on Raw?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing, he didn't want him to take that belt to WCW, so he didn't have a choice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you guys watch a lot of those shoot interviews with the different wrestlers, and they talk about, you know...
No, because half of that stuff's bullshit anyway.
That's working up the smart marks there, too.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Half of that stuff's not true.
Well, it's not Piper's Pit.
Right. Hitting people on the heads with coconuts and stuff.
Actually, are you a Kevin Sullivan fan?
Oh yeah, Kevin Sullivan. That was great. His whole satanic, or when he had Luna and Woman, and the Tree of Woe, and what was the two? He had those two big guys that were with him too. In the
Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom, yeah.
Earthquake, but he was a shark. What the hell was he called? Crap, I don't remember what his name was. It was like a shark.
Yeah, it escapes me, but yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, Kevin Sullivan was very cool. And that was what? Go ahead.
Kevin Sullivan, he was just on that wrestling show I just told you about, the Beyond Bushido. It's on our network. Oh. They just did an interview with him a few weeks ago.
Very cool. Let's
check that out. Well, I don't know. I didn't really get to watch the whole interview. But he watched like some old wrestling matches with them, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was
Facebook.
Cool.
Check it out. Oh yeah, you want on Facebook.
That was back in the days when pre-internet too, and so like if you were a wrestling fan, you were going to the grocery store and pulling out all the wrestling magazines and looking at them and seeing all these wrestlers that maybe didn't come to your region,
Right.
like the Freebirds and stuff like that. I was always infatuated with that stuff, and Kevin Sullivan was always in there. I was like, wow, this guy looks crazy, and
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, a lot of people with Chris Benoit killing, himself and his family and a woman and everything.
Yeah.
There's this big conspiracy that Kevin Sullivan was behind all that kind of stuff, but he just did an interview with Jim Cornette. Have you listened to his podcast at all?
Yeah, my son listens to all of them, but I've listened to a few and I really enjoy them.
Yeah, he was just on, I think it was last week. So check that interview out because it was pretty cool. He goes behind the scenes and tells you from the beginning of them getting together all up until Chris Benoit and that whole thing happened. It's a pretty interesting story. Sad story.
Yeah, no, that's depressing. I don't even think I can watch that Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. No.
Horrible tragedy, but I have to say I do still enjoy watching his classic Japanese matches. He was a very exciting wrestler.
Oh, Benoit, yeah, he was.
Yeah,
great. And who else?
Him and Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and oh god, there were a few of them. I'm drawing blanks on names now, but yeah, there were a whole bunch of wrestlers that came up with that same era. They all came up together. Dean Malenko.
Yeah.
The Four Horsemen.
Yeah, I mean, he was a worker too, just like, it's a crazy world of wrestling. We actually have a song that has been in the works for a while too, that's called Dead Wrestlers Heaven. And I try and name check almost every wrestler that's died, but of course it's impossible. But, the ones that I can make rhyme anyway, it's something that's been in the works for a while. And every time we kind of get it written, then like 5 more wrestlers have died. And it's like, oh shit, I got to include them,
Yeah.
Yeah. It was sad there for a while. Everybody was gone.
Yeah.
The worst one was Owen Hart.
When the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, that was really
Ultimate
sad.
Warrior, yes, was sad, but
Owen Hart.
Owen Hart was the worst.
I was watching that on pay-per-view, dude.
Yeah, so was I.
I was like 12. That messed me up for a little bit.
Yeah, I was at my friend's house. We were all sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden they cut to, I guess, the commercial, whatever, and we're like, what the hell's going on? Like nothing, everything just stopped. I was like, Owen Hart's dead now? Like, what the hell? He was like one of my favorite wrestlers. I was like, that was terrible.
I'm not a nugget.
Yeah. And who started that?
Was it Kevin Nash?
No.
Who started it?
Mick Foley.
Oh, called him a nugget.
Nugget. Oh, wait. Was it? Oh, shit.
I thought Nash called him an insignificant nugget.
I don't think Nash was there at that time.
Oh, wasn't he? Oh,
you know what? I might be wrong.
I don't know. Let's look into that.
It was either Mick Foley, The Rock. It might have been The Rock, or Stone Cold.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find out. That'll be an interesting little piece of trivia. Who came up with the insignificant nugget?
Yeah.
Tag Owen Hart.
Going back to the Impaler, because I was looking at your Facebook, and go ahead.
I was going to say, circling back around, since we were talking about pre-internet days, I was going to bring it back to Impaler. See, sometimes the stoner gets things right. But like I had said, I had discovered you guys through the film Trick or Treat, and it wasn't really easy to find things about you because I was all the way down Maryland, Jersey, other side of the country, and by then it was about 2001. So I used the computer at the library to look you guys up, and I wrote to Earl. And Earl, Root All Evil Records, Wayne, you probably don't know, but local here in Minnesota. Super cool, super awesome guy. Wrote me back immediately, sent me an Impaler Christmas card, couple of promos. I ended up buying The Gruesome Years. I think this compilation ended up being called.
Yeah.
Right, Bill? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that Earl's who I got my original Wake Up Screaming off of, too.
Is that right?
Yeah. And yeah, I corresponded with him for a long time. And you sent me a few signed things, too, Bill. It was just really cool experience to be young like that and everything you guys were doing, and just to physically write and have it written back.
Oh, yeah. Well, anybody that wants to talk to me, I'm flattered, you know. I like to talk to everybody that wants to speak to me, you know, or wants to write to me or send me a message on, you know, Facebook or whatever. Yeah. I mean, you're nothing if you can't connect with the people that like what you're doing, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and rest in peace, Earl. That was my other point. Awesome.
Yeah. Earl was
really
great.
awesome.
Earl was a big supporter of Impaler. He was at some of our earliest shows, and he's supported us since the very beginning, you know. And then he was this guy, great guitar player, and he opened his own record shop from selling metal records out of his trunk of his car to having his own shop and having his own radio show, and then starting his own label. He had a great band called Disturbed that put out an album back in the I guess the mid to late 80s.
I want to say 88. Yeah, Real Disturbed. Disturbing the Peace.
Yeah.
Channel 83.
Yeah. So he was a great presence here in Minnesota and a good friend to us, and so he's you know, he's sorely missed.
I was Shawn Michaels, by the way. I called Owen Hart and Nugget.
Okay.
Shawn
For
Michaels.
some reason
I hate that guy.
Some reason I had somebody else.
That must have been why.
He also has a lazy eye.
Oh, and my other crap.
He knocked everything down. I'm very unprofessional.
I was going to ask earlier that I couldn't remember that I drew a blank on was I was going to say, who designed the logo, Bill? I've always been curious.
Somebody that was working with Combat. I had like a really crude one that we used in our early flyers and stuff. And we sent Combat a mock-up of kind of what we wanted the cover to look like, because that was very much our idea of how we wanted Rise of the Mutants to look. And then they had a professional artist do a logo for us. And then he kept the blade. I had a couple of letters that looked like blades, and so he kept that and used it in the P on the Impaler. So yeah. So it would look much better than the one I used to draw, you know. My tongue hanging out with my crayon.
I think I have that on a poster.
Yeah, it's on our earlier flyers and stuff.
I think it's got a picture of Vlad on it too, actually.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
We used to do, you know, again, pre-internet, so I mean, it was all paste up to do a flyer back then. So I used to take newspaper and magazines and cut all the letters out, you know, punk rock kind of style, and use those as my typesetting, so to speak. And yeah, so it was fun, you know. It was so grassroots back then, with all of the fanzines that were Xeroxed, copied, and all the demo tapes. And it was just so belonged to the kids of that era. You know, they just owned it. And the major labels, they had no clue, you know, until it started to make money for somebody. Then they come sniffing around. But early on, it was just really just a great, great scene that I don't know that it will ever, you know, be duplicated. And it came right after the new wave of British heavy metal too, which was cool. So it was kind of like a 1-2 punch of awesomeness, you know.
Yeah. One reason I don't think it'll ever happen again is everybody's just so divisive now. You know, I think a big thing that played, even though I didn't live through it, but that played into a big part of the brotherhood of metal, if you will, was just that, you know, everything was just sort of forming and being defined. You know, real innovations as far as styles were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've really got your separate subgenres, and people are so ridiculously adamant about it. I just
I hate that shit.
listen to my stuff from the 80s.
Yeah. Well, generally, when a scene begins, or a movement like that, when it's pure in its early, infancy stage, it's everybody is doing their own thing, and then it kind of becomes a cookie cutter thing after a while, where people say, "Oh, this is successful," or labels say, "This is a successful sound, and we're going to go with this." This Marshall Crunch of Metallica and Anthrax, and that's the standard, and it's great. But back when it was all starting, there were, 100 different bands with 100 different styles that were all playing really cool stuff, that didn't get picked up by labels, or but you have to be true to yourself.
Yeah, I like what I like. I'll listen to Rise of the Mutants and then move on to Asia by Steely Dan right afterwards.
Right on.
Actually,
Right on.
that sounds like a really good idea. I think I'm going to do that after this.
Yeah, Steely Dan is awesome.
What's the biggest accomplishment you've had with Impaler?
With Impaler?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just been an ongoing thing. I'm probably staying together 35 years. 36, 37 years now, I think. Yeah. Just, boy. I mean, one of the things that really blew me away was there was a tribute album that was put together for us, and there was bands from all over the U.S. and Canada and overseas that covered our songs, and that blew my mind.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was very proud of that. When people cover your music and stuff and are inspired by it and want to play it, that's really cool. Having the first album come out, that's a feeling that you just dream about all your life, and then when it happens, that's very special. And just all of the controversy that it got and stuff really made it was kind of icing on the cake too. That was more than I ever dreamed would happen.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, those kind of things. I mean, playing with my friends, that's the biggest thrill to me. I love the guys in my band. They're great guys and they're great players, and it's just so fun to be with them and create with them. So I would say those are the best things about being an Impaler, the things I'm most proud of.
Also, I was looking on your Facebook. You don't have a website or anything? No, Impaler.com? You have a MySpace?
We did. Yeah, we had ImpalerShockRock.com for...
And what happened?
That just became a pain in the ass to keep it updated and stuff. And you could have first MySpace was free, and then Facebook was free. So we're kind of cheapskates, I guess. Yeah.
Most bands are doing that now anyways. But when I saw MySpace on, I'm like, who still uses MySpace?
Yeah, I don't know. That's like an old link or something. I don't know. That was probably put on as a link back when MySpace was in a ghost town, I actually like MySpace better than this Facebook stuff. Like with MySpace, you could create a page, and make it look the way you wanted to.
Your own, yep.
Yeah. And, they had great music on there. You had the music on there. That was the big thing for me. And you could go down a rabbit hole following bands that you liked, and then they were friends with other bands, and you could get turned on to all kinds of bands and then seek out their releases, and buy them.
Right.
That's what I did anyway. And so I really missed that when that went. I don't understand how that went.
I think it made a comeback or something. Actually, your link still works, so it's still on.
Yeah, I looked at it like about a year ago. I clicked on it just to see what the hell was there, and it was like you could still click on some songs and hear more music. So I figure that's important. If somebody stumbles across it, they can actually hear what we sound like. So I'm good with that. But I just don't understand how that would go away and be replaced by Facebook. I don't understand, but there's a lot I don't understand. As I get older, there's more and more things I don't understand.
Yes, the world is changing too fast, even for me.
A young fella like you.
Very young. I'm really, really young.
Younger than me.
Yeah, maybe. I just look young. Greg, you have something? Because I see you moving.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, originally in 1999 it was www.impaler.homepage.com.
Oh, yeah, that homepage. Yeah. That was another cheapskate move, yeah, because we didn't have to pay for homepage. You remember that? I think that was still dial-up, probably, when,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was what I stumbled upon at the library.
Was it homepage? Yeah, I forgot about that. That was yeah. But for many years we had ImpalerShockRock.com. And then we just kind of let it go.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to buy your albums, where do they go? Just Amazon?
Yeah, it's on iTunes, Amazon, any music outlet. It's available. We're distributed through MVD in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and so they have it available everywhere, and you can get it straight at MVD. You can order stuff there too.
Okay. Because I was actually looking for your stuff on the Amazon app, because I use the Amazon app once in a while, but I didn't see you guys on there. You're on the Spotify app though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I
know they sell some of our music's on Amazon if you want to buy it.
Like the physical CD, yeah.
Yeah.
But the MP3 or whatever is not on there.
So
I also
get that looked at too.
Yeah, I better check.
I believe the split is still available on Bandcamp too.
Is it? I didn't even know we were on Bandcamp. But
it's the thing to be on.
The split is. You know why the split's on there? Because Rip Snorter's on Bandcamp. Yep. That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why it's there. Yeah. So I don't know. You probably go down to your hardware store and buy it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. We can make it happen.
They got a little box of them on the counter.
No fooling though.
I gotta have somebody make me up a counter display though, so the album's hanging out of your mouth.
A cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
We used to do that. We used to do that in my old band because most of my band lived in Queens, and there's tons of places in Queens to go put your albums, like coffee shops, just anywhere. They would just go to any place that they go to normally, and just ask, "Can we put our CD on your counter?" And we just made up a nice little box, and threw our stuff up there, and people were buying it. Yeah.
Hey, it's good.
Money comes right to us.
Take some to the bowling alley. I mean, anywhere somebody's going to buy it, want some metal.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Earl had some little boxes made up at one point that would sit on the counter, and he was friends with other record, people in town and the people that did record conventions here. So Earl was really good with all that kind of stuff, marketing ideas.
Always got to keep it going there. Anything else, Greg?
Nope, that's it.
That's it.
All right, it's a wrap.
I don't want to keep you too late.
Yeah, I ran out of hams. I mean, I don't really run out. I've got more in the fridge.
I'm sure you do, yeah.
I don't have another one here.
I'm almost out of my Zevia. Diet soda.
And Greg's not drinking anything.
No, I've got
a Dr. Pepper or something there.
Pib Extra.
Oh,
Dr.
there you
Pepper.
go.
How dare you? This is a Mr. Pibb. This is a respectable soda. He doesn't put on airs by pretending to be this Dr. Pepper.
Yes. PhD of cold.
I don't think we have Pibb down here anymore. Or, we would be down here from you guys, yeah. We don't have Pibb.
Well,
no Pibb.
Like Lee Ving once said, New York's all right if you like saxophones.
Yeah.
But
it's
not
a great album.
much else.
Oh, before we go with you, we have I made a Spotify playlist of people that we've had on our show, and I have them pick one song that got you into wanting to be a musician, and one current song that you're into.
Okay, let's see. So one that got me into music in the first place was "School's Out" by Alice Cooper. When I heard that riff, that blew my mind. It was like so fat you could hang grandma and grandpa on it, That's one of the great rock and roll riffs. So School's Out by Alice Cooper would be an old one. And then the newest thing I just listened to, I like Lucifer a lot. Nick from Helicopters and Entombed, his new band. So they just did a cover of Paul Stanley, Together as One.
Really?
So, yeah, wow. It's really cool. It's going to be on Australian release or something. It's going to be a bonus track on
of course,
on an import.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I love that song.
Yeah, and they do it really well. They do it cool, and I like their new. I've got to get their new album, but the songs I've listened to on Lucifer 3, I like them a lot. So
yeah, they're a really good band.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's so fun to find bands like that.
Yeah. So you still keep up with the new bands?
I do. But the majority of my time I spend listening to music, I really am listening to old stuff. I still listen to the old stuff all the time. I listen to Aerosmith Rocks multiple times in a week. Motorhead, Ace of Spades, same thing. It's just like I always go to those albums.
Right.
And so I do try and find new bands, and my son is really helpful with that too, because he's in his 30s, so he pursues it a little harder than I do, and then he brings me stuff and says, you got to check this out, so I thank Zach for that. Dr. Corpse.
Dr. Corpse.
Having younger.
I love that horn.
Oh yeah.
So damn funny.
If I start talking too much, he's got a bike horn, with the rubber.
Right. Yeah. With the
what do you
whatever
call
you call it? Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. That's cool.
So,
all right. Well, thank you very much, Bill, for coming on. Had a lot of fun, and it was great to get to know you. It was really cool.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to know you too. It's good to meet another wrestling fan. Yeah. That's always a plus.
Yeah, every time I want to talk about wrestling, Greg and the other guy that's on the show, they don't really watch it, so it just goes over their head. So I don't even bother.
Well, because I'm usually arguing with him about some egregious thing he has to say about the history of metal. But
well, did you watch the last WrestleMania?
Yes, I did.
With like 0 people in the audience. So.
Yes.
So
it was interesting.
My son's take on it was they tried to do some little things where they kind of did cinematic kind of build up to the matches,
and those were the best parts of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned that, but then he said, but it's not wrestling. It's he's kind of old school, but yeah, he's been following it, up until recently, but he's kind of gotten tired of it, and so he's been going on his network every Monday night. He started watching Nitro and Raw from the beginning of the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So he's doing that weekly for his part of his wrestling fix. So.
Wow. Yeah, the good old days. Now it's just I don't even know. Now it's even harder to watch it.
He's kind of big on, and I don't remember what the name of the alliance is, but it's a Facebook only wrestling alliance, and I think Billy Corrigan had something to do with it.
I know he's back with NWA.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm not. But I guess this was just YouTube was the only way you could watch these matches.
Yes.
And he said it's really old school. It's like one light over the ring.
Yep, that's NWA. You'd probably like that because it's cool.
Yeah, I've been planning on trying to get to watch it. Work's been crazy, and then it's just like I doze off about 7:30 in the Easy Boy. So
I believe they're only like an hour. What's that?
I'm up past my bedtime.
Oh,
I'm being funny. I'm kidding.
Oh, sorry.
But those wrestling shows, I think they're only an hour, so it's not like too long.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Excuse me, check them out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys. My pleasure.
And what is your Facebook? So if people want to go to your Facebook page, do you know?
No, I don't know what it is. Go to Facebook and type in Impaler.
Just type in Impaler.
Yeah.
Well, there's two impalers, or maybe a few impalers. So is
Oh,
it like,
Christ. There have been
Yeah.
so many different bands that try and steal our name. Because it's a cool name. I mean, I guess that just
course.
shows you that, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but they don't have this awesome closing line. I'm going to quote Bill here because I always loved this quote from you on the back of this promo, Bill. So if you need to get your bloodbath, we'll be waiting in the underground where all the corpses live.
Good.
Facebook.com/Impaler Shock Rock.
Oh, I knew Shock Rock was in there somewhere.
Yeah,
but I
so
didn't want to
that's
mislead
where-
people.
So
Didn't want to
please go-
pretend like I knew when I didn't. So, all right,
Please.
guys.
Everybody, please go check out their website, and please check out our website, ratsaladreview.com, and please buy a T-shirt. We need the money.
Right on.
See you guys next time. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye.